In the vibrant heart of Ola Igbo, nestled between emerald forest and red clay roads, lay the village of Umoku, where the Ismowu festival was the pinnacle of tradition. Every year, this sacred event called forth the spirits of ancestors, embodied by the Ismowu, the king of masquerades. The entire village buzzed with anticipation, for it was said that the spirit of Ismowu could bestow blessings and cast judgments, its movements a dance between worlds. In this village lived Obiora, the son of a humble farmer. From a young age, Obiora had been captivated by the sight of the Ismowu, his heart pounding as he watched the masked figure glide across the earth with supernatural grace. While other boys played and fought, Obiora would practice the movements of the dance in secret, imitating the fluidity of the spirits. By the time he reached manhood, his skill had surpassed that of any other youth in Umoku, catching the attention of the village elders who, impressed by his dedication, chose him to become the next Ismowu. But Obiora's heart harbored a secret longing that surpassed even his desire to don the sacred mask, a longing for Edeora, the weaver's daughter. Edeora was a vision of beauty, her skin as smooth as the finest silk, her eyes the color of the evening sky. Her laughter was like music, and when she sang, her voice wrapped around the hearts of those who heard it, binding them in a spell of admiration. Many suitors, wealthy and handsome, sought her hand, but Edeora remained untouched by their advances, focused instead on her weaving and her duties to her family. Obiora was one of those suitors, but he was different from the others. He did not have wealth or status, and though his physical strength was admired, he believed it was not enough to win Edeora's heart. Whenever he saw her smile at another man, his heart twisted with envy, a dark cloud of jealousy looming over him. He watched as Okochukwu, the blacksmith's son, a man of wealth and charm, began to court her, presenting her with finely crafted trinkets and sweet words. Each time Obiora saw them together, laughing or speaking in hushed tones, it felt like a knife through his chest. Determined to win her, Obiora devised a series of desperate schemes. He started by leaving small gifts at her doorstep, hand-carved wooden figures, baskets of fruit, flowers freshly picked from the fields, but he never revealed himself as the giver. He hoped that these tokens would soften her heart, but Edeora seemed indifferent to the gifts, seeing them only as the work of another admirer too shy to show his face. Undeterred, Obiora tried to impress her with feats of strength and skill. He would chop wood in front of her house, his muscles rippling under the sun, or he would lift heavy sacks of grain as though they were feathers. Though Edeora noticed his efforts, she remained unimpressed, her thoughts still lingering on the mysterious Ismowu who had danced with such elegance and power at the last festival. The more Obiora tried, the more frustrated he became. He couldn't understand why Edeora remained so distant, even as he poured his heart into every gesture. His jealousy of Okochukwu grew, gnawing at him like a relentless hunger. But Obiora knew that he had one last chance to win Edeora's love, the upcoming Ismowu festival. The night before the festival, Obiora lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his small hut. He had practiced for months, honing his movements until they were as fluid and captivating as the spirits themselves. He would become the Ismowu, and through this, he would capture Edeora's heart. She would see him not as the poor farmer's son, but as the embodiment of grace, power, and mystery. The day of the festival arrived, and Umoku was alive with celebration. The villagers adorned themselves in bright colors, the air filled with the scent of roasted yams and the sound of drums beating in rhythm with the pulse of the earth. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the village, the time came for the Ismowu to appear. Hidden within the sacred grove, Obiora donned the elaborate costume and mask of the Ismowu. The mask, a masterpiece of carved wood and vibrant colors, transformed him into something otherworldly. As he stepped into the clearing, he felt the weight of the ancestors upon him, their spirits lending him strength and purpose. He was no longer Obiora, he was the Ismowu, the king of masquerades, the bridge between the living and the dead. The drums thundered as he began to dance, his movements precise yet fluid, his body swaying like the trees in a storm. The villagers watched in awe, their eyes wide with reverence and fear. But Obiora's eyes sought only one face in the crowd, Adeora's. She stood near the front, her eyes fixed on him, her expression a mixture of wonder and admiration. Obiora's heart swelled with hope as he danced closer to her, his movements becoming more intricate, more powerful. He could see the awe in her eyes, the way she leaned forward slightly, as though drawn to him by an invisible force. For a moment, he felt invincible, certain that his plan was working, that Adeora was finally seeing him for who he truly was, or rather, who he could be. As the dance ended, the Ismowu began the ritual of blessing the maidens. One by one, he placed his hand on their heads, speaking words of protection and prosperity. When he reached Adeora, he paused, his heart pounding beneath the mask. He extended his hand, and she hesitated only for a moment before placing her hand in his. The connection between them was electric, the air around them charged with a tension that neither could deny. Obiora spoke the blessing in a voice deeper and more resonant than his own, hiding his emotions behind the mask. "May the spirits guide you and grant you all that your heart desires," he said, his voice trembling slightly with the weight of his feelings. Adeora looked up at him, her eyes searching the mask as though trying to see the man behind it. "Thank you, Ismail," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. For the rest of the festival, Adeora could not stop thinking about the Ismowo. His dance, his presence, his blessing, it all lingered in her mind like a dream she couldn't quite grasp. She felt a strange pull toward him, a yearning to know the man behind the mask. Little did she know that the man was none other than Obiora, the same Obiora she had often dismissed as just another suitor. Days passed, and Obiora could hardly contain his excitement. He had seen the way Adeora looked at the Ismowo, the admiration in her eyes. He believed that he had finally succeeded, that she would come to him now, realizing that he was the one she had been searching for. But as the days turned into weeks, Adeora remained distant, her thoughts still consumed by the mysterious Ismowo. She would often sit by the river, her mind drifting to the festival, replaying the dance in her head, wondering about the man who had moved with such grace and power. Obiora, unable to bear the suspense any longer, decided to reveal himself to her. He would tell her the truth, that he was the Ismowo, and that everything he had done was to win her love. Surely, she would understand, and they would finally be together. He waited for her by the river one evening, just as the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. When she arrived, he stepped out from the shadows, his heart pounding in his chest. "Adeora," he called softly. She turned, her eyes widening in surprise. "Obiora, what are you doing here?" "I need to tell you something," he said, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "It's about the Ismowo." Her curiosity was piqued. "What about him?" Obiora hesitated for a moment, then spoke the words he had been rehearsing in his mind for days. "I am the Ismowo. I was the one who danced at the festival. I was the one who blessed you." Adeora stared at him, her expression unreadable. You're the Ismowo?" "Yes," Obiora replied, his voice trembling slightly. "I wanted you to know because I've loved you for so long, and I hoped that maybe you felt something when we met, even though you didn't know it was me." For a moment, Adeora said nothing, her mind racing as she tried to process his words. Then, slowly, her expression shifted from surprise to something darker, disappointment, even anger. "How could you do this, Obra?" she asked, her voice cold. "How could you deceive me like this?" "I didn't mean to deceive you," Obiora said quickly, his heart sinking as he realized the depth of her disappointment. "I just didn't know how else to get close to you. I thought that if you saw me as the Ismowo, you might see me differently." "But that's just it," Adeora replied, her voice rising slightly. "The Ismowo isn't a man. He's a spirit, a sacred figure. I admired the Ismowu because I believed him to be something more than just flesh and blood. But now it's all tainted. Edeora, please, Obiora pleaded, stepping closer to her. I did it because I love you. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted you to see me. But I do see you, Obiora, she said, her eyes hardening. And now I see that you're just like all the others, willing to deceive and manipulate to get what you want. How can I trust you now? With those words, she turned and walked away, leaving Obiora standing alone by the river, his heart shattered into pieces. For weeks, Obiora was a shadow of his former self. He could barely eat or sleep, the weight of his actions pressing down on him like a heavy stone. He had thought that revealing the truth would bring them closer, but instead, it had driven her away. His dreams of winning Adeora's heart now seemed more distant than ever. Unable to bear the pain, Obina sought the counsel of an elder, a wise woman known for her deep understanding of the human heart. He poured out his soul to her, confessing everything, his love for Adeora, his jealousy, his schemes, and the disastrous outcome of his confession. The elder listened carefully, her eyes filled with understanding and compassion. When he finished, she spoke softly. Obiora, love is not something that can be won through deceit or manipulation. It is a gift, something that must be given freely and received with an open heart. You tried to force Adeora to love you, but in doing so, you betrayed her trust. If you truly love her, you must show her that your love is genuine, not through grand gestures or schemes, but through patience, humility, and honesty. Her words struck a chord deep within Obiora, and he realized that she was right. He had been so focused on winning Adeora's love that he had lost sight of what it truly meant to love someone. He needed to change his approach, to stop trying to impress her and instead focus on being the kind of man who deserved her love. From that day on, Obiora dedicated himself to becoming a better person. He stopped trying to win Adeora's heart through grand gestures and instead focused on being a constant, reliable presence in her life. He helped her family with their weaving business, repaired things around her home, and treated her with respect and kindness, without expecting anything in return. At first, Adeora remained distant, her heart still guarded against him. But gradually, she began to see Obina in a new light. She saw the sincerity in his actions, the quiet strength in his character, and the depth of his remorse. She realized that the boy she had once dismissed had grown into a man of integrity. One day, as they worked together on a loom, Adeora looked at Obiora and saw him, not as the Ismowu, not as the jealous suitor, but as a man who had struggled, grown, and changed for the better. For the first time, she felt a stir of affection for him, a warmth that spread through her heart like the first rays of sunlight after a long, dark night. Obiora, she said softly, breaking the silence between them. He looked up, surprised by the gentleness in her voice. Yes, Adeora. I've been thinking, she continued, her eyes meeting his. Maybe I was too harsh on you. Obiora's heart raced with hope, but he kept his voice steady. You had every right to be. I betrayed your trust, and I'm sorry for that. I know, Adeora said, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. But I also see that you've changed. You've shown me that your love is real, not just through words, but through your actions. And that means more to me than any dance or masquerade. Obiora's heart swelled with emotion as he listened to her words, his eyes filling with tears of gratitude. Adeora, She placed a finger on his lips, silencing him. You don't need to say anything, Obiora. I see you now, and I think I've been blind for too long. With those words, the rift between them began to heal, the wounds of the past slowly closing. They continued to walk side by side, their relationship growing stronger with each passing day. The love that had once seemed so unattainable was now within their grasp, not because of grand gestures or schemes, but because they had both learned what it truly meant to love and be loved. When the next Ismowu festival came around, Obiora was once again chosen to don the sacred attire. But this time, as he danced through the village, his heart was light, for he knew that the woman he loved saw him for who he truly was, and loved him all the same. As the Ismowu, he blessed the village, but when he came to Edoora, he tried to remove his mask, but a shocked and scared Edoora, unsure what the implication would be, shook her head desperately, urging him not to. He stopped and instead pulled out the glove from his hand and stretched the hand at her. She held him by the hand and drew closer to him. And in that moment, as their eyes met, they both knew that they had found something far more precious than any masquerade or festival. They had found each other.